who has your vote as of today?
Well, that's a ridiculous question. I mean, Biden is not even alive or running the country.
He's not. He died.
Basically.
Biden.
I haven't looked at
Hit that like button for me, people.
What just happened?
I
just saw him on TV yesterday. Is he?
or did you? But no, obviously,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. And not because I'm hardcore MAGA. It's because I have a brain still in my head.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today? I appreciate the people that are hanging out with me right now. Appreciate you swinging by. This is going to be interesting, man. I have a great video to share. Please make sure that y'all like and share. If you haven't subscribed already, if this is your first time here, definitely please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, man. We appreciate all the love and support. Really do. And without further ado, let's kick this thing off.
Trump, he's a businessman. He's gonna bring a business savvy mind, real estate. And all right, Biden, he's a career politician. That's what's going on. So here's just a couple of headlines that I want to get your guys' perspective on what's going on in the news right now. So the judge in Georgia, under the election interference case, has now dismissed 6 indictment charges against Trump. I think it was 91. Now it's down to 85. Meanwhile, you have people like Jon Stewart and Representative Jamie Raskin basically saying they're using the buzzwords for Trump: autocrat, the end of democracy, the dictator thing. And then you have someone like Bill Maher on the Biden side of things basically saying, listen, Biden, you need to drop Kamala Harris and bring in another woman of color, Nikki Haley, to basically be your campaign. So I want to have this conversation with you guys on the left, on sort of the right. Trump, Biden, what are you expecting? What are you expecting this country? Who you voting for? Dave Rubin, all these topics. You're friends with Bill Maher.
Why don't we let one of the ladies go first? I've been talking a lot.
Before they get into that, wait, hold up. Bill Maher wants Nikki Haley to switch from the Republican Party to the Democrat Party. Is he asking for her to end her career? Is that what he's asking for? I mean, make that make sense. Bill Maher is a lunatic, to say the least. To say the least, Bill Maher is a raging lunatic right now. He would literally say anything to make sure that the Democrats win this time around. Goodness gracious, that makes absolutely no sense. Zero. Wow.
I'll
Aaron,
chime out for a second.
go ahead. Who are you voting for? Thoughts on Trump versus Biden?
Voting for Biden. Don't like Trump. Not a fan.
Because he's mean?
No, I don't care if a politician is mean. I care more about their policies, and I don't think that Donald Trump has a good direction for America. And I don't think that the things that Senator Raskin are saying are just buzzwords, things like autocrat and dictator. Between January 6th and attempted insurrection, as well as special interest groups like Project 2025 that are attempting to subvert democratic law and the Constitution to keep Trump installed effectively into perpetuity. I don't think that's what most Americans want, and certainly not what I want. And I think that this country is founded on notions of liberty and not just, top-down totalitarian dictatorial rule.
Here's my question for you. I'm not going to do a binary yes or no. What can Trump do to earn your vote, and what could Biden do to lose your vote? Is there anything?
Yeah, of course. Trump would have to start a major pivot and start embracing a lot more left-wing policies. Like I don't see Trump jumping up and down to expand Social Security. I don't see him jumping up and down to help expand labor unions. Things like Biden actually did help expand labor unions. Trump helped bust labor unions. I'm not a fan of that. Neither are working class people. Unless Trump wanted to make huge pivots like that, which would basically be having to exit the Republican Party and switching platforms. Yeah, short of that, I don't see him earning my vote.
Before she answers, what can Biden do? What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, I jump back to her original statement where she said that, her big problem with Trump isn't that he's mean, but that he's autocratic and that he's trying to install himself forever. The funny thing is it's utterly fallacious because they have a huge proof point. And the huge proof point was January 21st. January 20th, Biden was sworn in and Trump walked out of the White House. No fight, no fanfare, no military coup, no nothing. If he had wanted to install himself permanently, he would have done it right then and there. And he didn't. He walked away. He allowed for the peaceful transition of power, even though he disputed the the results of the election because there was clear election fraud. And I mean, it's inherently obvious to the casual observer that when you stop counting in 5 swing states for 2 hours and you watch the vote count literally go up, it's trending at a curve and it literally spikes up for Biden in that right after that 2-hour time frame. Anybody can see that there's clear election fraud, but he still didn't push the point with force or militarily or anything else. So I think her points are really fraudulent. And then when asked, well, what could Trump do to earn your vote? Well, basically become a Democrat. Okay, that's yay. What could Biden do to earn my vote? Nothing. Because even if he became a Republican, I wouldn't trust him. So I find her points just merely talking points, and they mimic the Democrat talking points that we've heard for the last 3 years.
Absolutely. I would agree 100%. And I mean, obviously she's a socialist, that's pretty obvious. Yes, there needs to be some form of fix to Social Security, but I'm one of those kind of people at this point that I almost think we need to start thinking about a pivot away from that and a better solution, to be honest with you. The Democrats, they take the money and then they spend it. As quick as we throw it in, as fast as they spend it. So I'm more in line with us figuring out some form of solution where our money is protected and protected by us, the people. And I don't know if it needs to be an outside source or some form of, outside hedge fund or something along those lines. But what we do know with the government running it, they're basically running it into the ground, almost to the point that it's probably not going to exist if they don't do something within the next, 7 or 8 years or maybe 9 years or so?
I think the latest have it at 2035 or something for solvency, but it changes all the time.
But it changes.
But you're right. I mean, short of exiting the program altogether, the only thing that would really make Social Security viable and really live up to the promises that it was made, I guess it's 80 years ago now, was you've got to privatize the program. Everybody's money has got to go into their own account that only they can touch. Now, you may want to limit their investment decisions, but again, this goes back to the government coddling people and nannying them, to keep them from losing money. But that's the only thing that's really viable. The problem with Social Security right now is it's a giant Ponzi scheme. Bernie Madoff went to jail for exactly what the government has been doing with Social Security. It's the new entrants into the program that pay for the retirees. There is no trust fund. There is no savings account anymore. It's all been raided by Congress over the last 30 years.
Absolutely.
Jumping up and down to help expand labor unions. Things like Biden actually did help expand labor unions. Trump helped bust labor unions. I'm not a fan of that. Neither are working class people. Unless Trump.
All right. Hey, Michaela. Is it Michaela Bell? I appreciate you out of Virginia. Shout out, Michaela.
Wanted to make huge pivots like that, which would basically be having to exit the Republican Party and switching platforms. Yeah, short of that, I don't see him earning my vote.
And what can Biden do to lose your vote at this point? Is there anything Biden can do to lose your vote?
Yeah, of course, if he started acting more like Trump.
Okay, gotcha. The dictatorial thing.
Yeah.
How about you?
So we literally have Weekend at Bernie's walking around. I don't even know if he's walking around. I mean, I almost think they have some form of robotics, on him, and they're just making him move. He looks ridiculous out here. He is a poor representation of the United States of America. And she would prefer that guy over the guy that is flying around the country, going from one court case to the next, going down to rallies, spending and speaking at rallies for, 2 and 3 hours at a time. Trump just has way more energy. He's just so much more energized. Obviously, from 16 to 19, the policies were so much better. But she would rather have the guy that, honestly, I don't think is actually running the country. That's the preference. It makes absolutely no sense.
You, Pedrino, who has your vote as of today?
Well, that's a ridiculous question. I mean, Biden is not even alive or running the country.
He's not. He died.
Basically.
Biden.
I haven't looked at my
What just happened?
And yeah,
I just saw him on TV yesterday. Is he?
or did you? But no, obviously,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. and not because I'm hardcore MAGA. It's because I have a brain still in my head. But you mentioned this working class thing, and you talked about bugs and steak dinners, and we're talking about this like idea of, because working class is like between that, right? What you don't realize, and everything that we're talking about, these policies are what creates this extreme, bug eaters and steak eaters. And there will not be a working class with these policies that you guys claim to like. And that's what you don't see, because it's, again, they're short-sighted visions that are like sweet in the moment, but long term, it's going to create a monster. And I've seen it happen in different countries. I didn't even realize it was a thing until I went to Mexico, I went to Peru, and I saw it. I was like, this is odd. Like, I would go and I visit, family or people I know, or whatever reason I was going was extreme wealth. But then I see like right around, it was awful. And I haven't seen that here. I mean, it was like ignorant of me, and it was years ago, but now it made me basically realize like, oh, that is that bad policy that creates that. And it is what is happening here. So it is just something to, make you guys aware of, that working class you're talking about is going to be completely decimated, and we're going to be having extremes low and extreme high. It's not going to be, McDonald's and In-N-Out. It's going to be, French Laundry and McDonald's. It's going to be really, really extreme. So, but who am I?
That's the luxurious food. We all know that. I mean, that's.
She's absolutely right. We're headed in the direction of have and have nots. We're headed in the direction of the people who have it and the people who don't. That's where we're going. And Chris, I know you were in the military. You've traveled. You've had a chance to, go to some different countries out there and see what it looks like. We're going in that direction if we don't make a change in this upcoming election season. What are your thoughts?
You're absolutely right. That's exactly the direction we're going. And I've been to some very poor countries that had extremely wealthy people, and almost all of them were government bureaucrats, because the government had made a business of strip mining their people for wealth. And I'm not an RFK Jr. guy. I'll never vote for him. I'm a Trump guy through and through. But RFK Jr. said something that was really salient in an interview. He talked about the fact that the United States government and the globalist corporations were strip mining the middle class in America. And he's right. Through taxes and regulation. And I mean, what we saw 4 years ago now, when the US government and state governments forced every small business to shut down, but yet they let Costco, Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, they all got to stay open. But your local hardware store, no, you couldn't stay open. Your local gym, your local daycare, no, none of them can stay open. So it's been a process. And if we go down that road, if we lose the middle class, we will lose our republic and our democracy, because that's the foundation. That's the rock bed of what we've built in this country. Without it, you will have the haves and have-nots, and we'll be left with riots in the streets and totalitarianism.
Absolutely. I mean, we have the largest middle class in the world. No other nation has a middle class that even remotely rivals what we have here in the country. And you mentioned something during the lockdowns, during the shutdowns, the penalties on small businesses, which throughout history, small business has been the bedrock, the foundation of this nation. And even right now, I believe small business still employs over 45% of U.S. workers right now. And, through the increase, the consistent and constant increase of minimum wage, through, all these different regulations and the trucking industry, a lot of those guys, man, that were small business owners in the trucking industry, there's a lot of people in that industry that had to get out because of, all the additional, fees and insurances and so forth and so on. They really started to price out the little men. And that what was once considered the American dream of buying a house, potentially owning a business, slowly but surely, we're getting to a point to where that's not something that's feasible. And we have to protect that for our children. Now, Chris, I know you have young children. I have, younger men that are, going to, try to attempt to forge their way in this country. I keep telling people this upcoming election cycle, you're not voting for you, especially if you're already a middle-aged person, or definitely if you're an older person. This vote isn't about you. This is about our children and our children's children. This is a legacy vote, in my opinion. This election right here, this is about the legacy of America. And if we, some kind of way, do not get Donald Trump in office, this country may not be what it used to be within, 10 years or so? And our children are not going to be afforded the same opportunities that we had coming up. And it's unfortunate. And it's sad that you have a young person like that young lady there who can't even see it. She can't get over her TDS to see what's actually going on right now.
Nothing's more luxurious than the fast food. Pixie,
That was a great point.
Where do you see yourself voting as of today?
I see myself voting for Biden. I have similar sentiments as Aaron, that unless if they completely switch policy positions, then my vote would switch. But obviously, I don't see that happening. To their earlier point about like inequality within the United States and different policy changes, right now, to be able to get to the next income bracket, 1 in 28 Americans will be able to escape the cycle of poverty, essentially. In multiple European countries, it's 1 in 8, and that's not a coincidence.
That wasn't the case during the Trump administration.
No.
More people pulled themselves up out of poverty than any other 4 years. You'd have to go back probably 50 years to see a ratio of people that were in poverty that pulled themselves up. Hands down, in my opinion, I said this the other day, from 16 to 19, me as an adult, as a 44-year-old man, that was the best 3 years of, financially that I experienced in my entire adult life, to be honest with you, 16 to 19. What this lady is talking about, if we get more Biden, what she's talking about, it won't be attainable.
That's basically based on the fact that our early education system, the way that's currently handled, is based on basically the taxes that you pay around.
Well, where did that stat come from?
I think Center of Global Poverty. I'm not sure.
So just break that down distill that for me. Are you saying it's easier to become a millionaire in Europe than it is in the United States?
No, not a millionaire. What it is easier to do, what they did is that they looked at people who are in the lowest possible income bracket, people who are poor. And then they compared it to like, okay, their children, their next generation. Are they going to be in the same bracket? Are they going to be in the next middle class? Or are they going to become like super duper rich? And what they saw is that in 1 in 28 basically children, they were able to get to the next bracket in the United States. While in multiple European countries, I believe Finland, I think the UK, and Sweden, if I'm not wrong, it was like 1 in 8. So it's not that they became millionaires, it's just that they were able to escape from the lowest class to the next class.
But what's weird is you're saying conflicting things, because last week and what you talk about is welfare and things like that. That does not help you elevate. That keeps you there.
Does help you though.
It does not. I think you're absolutely coming to a place.
This is another young person who hasn't lived she hasn't lived life long enough. If she thinks welfare helps people, she obviously doesn't know anybody who's lived on the welfare system. That is pretty obvious. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, she's completely deluded. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at her study and the study that she's supposedly citing, but no country is even close to America in the production of millionaires, in people raising themselves up out of poverty to the next income levels, and has been for the last 100 years. No country even comes close. And I've been to Europe. I've been there many times. I have lots of friends who live in Europe. Europe has an almost unidentified caste system. It's certainly not enshrined into law like it is in India, but there is very much a haves and have-nots in Europe that it is very hard to break out of. You generally end up doing, especially in the UK, what your parents did. It's very much an apprenticeship program there, and the highways of economic mobility are not there like they are in the United States.
I would agree with that 100%. And just in this country, a lot of the issues that we have when it comes to poverty has to do with the fact that we are not marrying and raising families at the same clip that we were 10 years ago. That's right. What we do know is that when you have children, especially, that find themselves in single parent led situations or households, those children are more likely to find themselves living at or below the poverty line. The same thing, when you look at marriages and you look at married people, only 4% of married couples in the United States are living at or below the poverty line. So to me, it sounds like an easy fix is let's incentivize people to do the right thing and find a good mate, man, woman, get married and raise your children in that nuclear family.
Absolutely correct. I can't remember who cited the statistic, but somebody came out. I think it was a 3-part plan. The guarantee to stay out of poverty was graduate from high school, don't have children before you get married, and basically then get married. Those 3 things guaranteed that you are out of poverty statistically.
Those 3 things still hold true. And those are things that I've taught my kids. Hey, we got to graduate high school. I'd add in, gain some form of skill or trade. Don't have children before you get married, and find a good person to marry and raise your family. The likelihood of you living a successful, productive life, if you follow those steps, extremely high, even now in the United States of America.
From, again, sweet thoughts, but not actual reality. That's why I asked you, do you have friends? Do you understand? Like, have you interacted with people and that actually use this system? This is not something they're trying to get out of. They're trying to game it and gain more from it. I mean, I truly believe this. There is a small percentage. I believe when my family came here, they were on welfare for like a split second. The idea was to get out. Again, we're talking years and years ago. There's a totally different mindset. Now it is to get on it. It's how many kids can I have to have more money from it. It's how can I work the system? That's what they're doing. And then yes, I wish that their kids would grow up and say, hey, that's what mom did. I don't want that. I want to get out of it. That's what I would like to think. But I think that it perpetuates the cycle of let me depend on the government.
Well, I would also say, because you've several times referenced Finland and Sweden, and everyone always talk, and Bernie always does this, they talk about the Nordic countries. So if you want to talk about very tiny, almost all white countries, if you want the United States to be more like that with a uniculture and a very obvious skin color, that's generally not what progressives want. But if that is what you want America to look like more, that would be an interesting position.
See if you can
to
find
hold.
out the population, Humberto, of the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland,
They're absolutely
Sweden.
tiny, but Sweden, by the way, Sweden let in, something about it like 1 million Muslims, something like that. And now they have huge problems. I mean, try going to Malmo, Sweden, and seeing what it's like.
And I saw you do a reaction video to the Muslim woman in the UK.
Who was defending Britain.
Yeah. Break that down.
Well, it was really fascinating. I wanted to do something that wouldn't be the traditional thing that people would see. I can show you a million videos of, Muslim people wandering through London, screaming from the river to the sea and calling for genocide and all that. But then I found this video of a woman in traditional Muslim garb talking about how multiculturalism had failed there, that she didn't want the country to be more like the countries that most of these people had come from. And that if the more that they import these religious ideas and authoritarian ideas and ideas that are against women and gays and all of these other things, that they are going to actually destroy Britain and no one will know what Britain is. And I think it's only a matter of time, unfortunately. Britain seems to be heading that way no matter what. I mean, you can't have hundreds of thousands of people marching largely in calls for genocide in your streets until at some point they're going to cross a threshold and have way too much power. They already have the mayor of London, and I think the more conservative, he's not really conservative, the more conservative prime minister is about to go down. But at some point they'll just march to the palace and they'll be like, sorry, King, we're taking you out, Charles, and that'll be that.
So what you're saying is
but my point of showing this video was not everyone is like that, which is why you have to care about individuals and not about group identity.
That's what it was about.
But Adam,
and I think what you're saying is like Trump was like, these shithole countries, if you're a normal country, if you're the UK, if you're the Canada, the Australia, democracies, that there's a potential if you take in all these people from these shithole countries that your country could potentially become a shithole.
America, for 200 plus years, we did it so right that everyone came here and became part of America. That's largely why I live in Miami, where it's all Cubans, and I love Cubans. I've never met a group of people that I feel such, like when I go to Calle Ocho, like I feel there is such a, like, because they understand. They're usually one generation off it, and at least the younger ones that I meet. But like I talk to 80-year-olds who like they so get it, right? And America. The promise of America was that you'd fold into America in that we are a melting pot. So you could bring your foods and your traditions and your music and your clothes, but that we would fold into the idea of freedom. That was the melting pot. That was very different than what Europe did, because Europe basically brought people in but didn't really have a melting pot. It didn't really sell an idea. America is an idea. Europe was just like, oh, we're England, you can come here, but Pakistanis will kind of live here and you people will live here and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, maybe we'll do some business now and again, but you're not going to all share in everything. America has done it right until I would say, the last decade, where the progressives decided that your skin color and your religion and everything else is tantamount, is the most important thing in the hierarchy, and your individual thoughts are actually the least important thing, which again is why I put that video of that Muslim woman up, because I was like, oh, this flips that on its head.
Of course.
Before you-
I want to
Speaking
push
of,
back on the idea about the whole thing of like, oh, welfare doesn't actually help outcomes. When we look at the universal child tax credit,
I want your thoughts on Rubin.
I was actually thinking about what she was talking about in terms of the Scandinavian countries, and then he jumped in. I mean, I've done business in Scandinavian countries. They're highly capitalist. The dirty little secret is Scandinavian countries are not socialist. They're highly capitalist, especially Sweden is bull-marked by Ericsson, a huge giant telecom, Volvo, a huge giant auto manufacturer, and a whole bunch of other very large corporations that have been extremely successful. They have a huge, big social safety net, yes, but they are very capitalist countries. And then come to find out that even with like companies like Volvo and Ericsson, they have serious employment problems in Sweden, and most of their profit is actually generated overseas, but it comes back home. So it was very interesting to hear what she had to say about that.
Well, this is another person, I would assume that she's probably a college student, and her life consists of, I graduated high school and she spent the latter part of the 3 or 4 years on a college campus getting pumped with ideas that don't actually work, that no one has actually put into practice. That seems like that's what happens when you send your kid off to college. My kid is about to go to college, and I am working on him. I'm like, son, don't get caught up in that. Go there to do what you need to do, get the training you need to get, but don't get caught up in this liberal foolishness. Don't get caught up in it. And I know I'm going to have to continue to have these conversations, because I know a few people who sent their kid off one way and they came back different with these same idiotic talking policies, so you kind of got to, I'm almost at a point now where I don't even know, unless you want to do something that is the only way you can gain the skill is through college. I don't think that's a place that you should send your kid. Or maybe it's a situation where we need to wait a few years, let them get a little older, a little more wiser before you just send them off at 18. Maybe they get 3 or 4 years under their belt somewhere. I don't know. But man, they just pump these kids. They're almost like they're liberal indoctrination camps.
In my opinion, if my child, and mine are all real young, so I've got a long time to figure this out. But if they weren't going for a specific professional degree, engineer, lawyer, doctor, something to that effect, I would tell them, don't go to college. Go get a trade, go figure something else out. Go be an entrepreneur. Go do your own thing. If you want to go to college to go to business school, okay, that's kind of on the fuzzy side, but at least it's more of a hard science than I'm going to go for a liberal arts degree and just, I wouldn't let him do it. I'd counsel him against it.
I agree. I'm with Takaski, man. Trade school thing that I talked to my son about, my youngest, is gain a skill that can turn into a business. So if that means, a doctor, a dentist of some sort, maybe you can start your own practice. Physical therapist, maybe you can start your own, physical therapy practice of some sort. Don't go for some liberal sociology or psychology or any other liberal major out there. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And the results that it has on childhood poverty, we see that it reduces it by half. We see that the long-term outcomes when it comes to let's say his food stamps is $1 put in, $1 that actually comes back to the economy because of kids who are able to grow up healthy, less likely to engage in behavior like stealing essentially, have better, healthier life outcomes. And then on top of that, I want to say that when it came to the study that I referred to, there was one factor that they changed that made the number more 1 to 8 in the United States, and that was basically helping families, assisting families with government assistance to move into better areas and better zip codes, essentially.
You mean in Europe?
No, in Europe it was 1 to 8, but in the United States, what they basically did is that they were okay, let's see if we can change this number or what factors that we can do, and if that will affect long-term outcomes. And one of those things was, yes, assisting families to live in better neighborhoods.
What does a neighbor? That's so interesting. What does that imply? When you're saying you move to a better neighborhood? What do you mean by better? Why would they not do okay there? If they're, so innately good and they're going to do good with this, what would change about their environment? I mean, I want to understand what you mean by a better neighborhood.
So by better neighborhoods, we're talking about neighborhoods that were considered like economic hotspots. So neighborhoods that were basically looking like at better growth when it came to general jobs around the area, more businesses, which I'm pro of as well. Basically, what would end up happening is that you move the parents to these areas. The children would essentially go to a better school, more or less, and the parents would also have more economic opportunity, and so would the children as they're growing up there. So basically, if you want to improve childhood poverty or outcomes in the future, yeah, you can say like, oh, welfare to a certain extent, but also welfare that focuses on bringing these people to better environments where they can then grow and thrive. And that's what, as a progressive, I am for. I'm for giving people those opportunities so they can raise themselves up, not just to be dependent.
Right.
But that's not the liberal way. That's not what Democrats do. That's not progressive. They're against school choice. They're against moving families into better neighborhoods or allowing kids to go to school in better neighborhoods. They're against that. See, that's what I'm saying, Chris. She hasn't lived enough.
No, and I'm all for competition. Competition in education, competition in healthcare, competition everywhere. As much as possible, leave it over to a free market and people will migrate exactly where they want to go. That's why you see mass exodus from California and New York right now, because people are realizing, no, the taxes are too high. The services aren't there. Businesses are leaving. I'm leaving too. But on the microcosm, if they can pick the school they want to go to, people will do it. If you give them the money, they will put their kids in the best position that they can possibly find. And everybody will get better, because that means the failing schools will go away and they'll get replaced by schools that actually work.
We as a nation, honestly, I know there is a battle of the sexes. There is a huge divide between men and women right now in this country. We need to mend those fences, and we need to figure out a way to get men and women back on the same page. That's a lot of the problems that we have. We're not marrying nowhere near how at the rate that we should, and we're not having children in those marriages nowhere near at the rate that we should. And honestly, if you want to solve the welfare issue, we can solve this problem. There are going to be some people that are going to hurt for a little bit. And I'm going to preface this by saying this. All the people that are on the system right now, they can stay on the system as it is. But no new people on the system. Get rid of welfare, get rid of Section 8, get rid of child support. If you're already on it right now, you get to keep it. But we got to stop incentivizing people that make poor choices in their life. And if we do that, those numbers will come down. They will. That's not to say that it won't happen, but if we don't incentivize it, because right now there's no real consequences. If a young lady goes out there and, she does what she do and she comes up pregnant, there's a huge safety net that she can lean on to include, testing everybody that she feels like who could be the father and railroading a man for the next 20 years, potentially. But if we got rid of that, get rid of the safety net, just get rid of it, you would have more people thinking twice before they jump out there and make a poor choice, because they know it's going to be 100% on you. Right now, in the Black community, I think the number is 76 or 77% of children are born outside of wedlock. That is awful. And then you look at the communities that we live in, and you look at those communities, and you look at the correlation. There's a direct correlation to single parent-led households, especially single woman-led households, and crime. There's almost a direct one-to-one correlation. Neighborhoods that are full of those types of families and those types of situations typically are some of the most crime-ridden places in the country. That's what the data says. We can eliminate that by de-incentivizing women to jump out there and do that, and being a little more selective with the mates that they choose to lay down with hopes that they will marry said person before they decide to have a kid with that individual. And if you do go out there and do it, just know that you're going to be on your own, the way it is in a multitude of countries that don't have these issues. Name the Arab nation that has the single parenthood situation like we have.
Not even close. No, I completely agree with you. Whether it's black, white, or whatever, I think the number one social ill in America is father absence. You could not necessarily fix, but you could improve every other social problem by some measure by just tackling the father absence issue, whether that was suicide, depression, the whole transgender problem going on. All of that would be, if not fixed, improved by fixing the father absence issue. And it would go a huge way to solving crime, poverty, and all the other problems that are extremely prevalent in the Black community, but are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger in every other community as well, as we go down the same path.
Yeah, I would agree. This lady, she hadn't lived enough yet.
And again, that's why the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because everyone that's for welfare wants exactly what you just said. But as you said, when your family came here, they were on welfare for a very brief period. That's what it was set up to do. But now we know we keep families in generational welfare. So my sister lived in a building on the Upper West Side that was, like a 40-story building, and she was paying market value, and it was for a really, she always called it her little shoebox. It was for a 1-bedroom apartment that she had her husband and 2 kids in, and they paid about $5,000 a month. But then there were people literally on her floor that were generationally there. So I think it was a third generation that was there that was paying about $350 a month because it's they were Black. It was generational poverty. They were also given food stamps and everything else. Now, this has nothing to do with the color of your skin, but if you were given,
if you're
if the government was like, oh, you can have that apartment for $350, these suckers over there, they're going to subsidize you for $5,000. You're never going to leave, and you're never going to get a job, because why would you? That has nothing to do with skin color, by the way. Why would you be like, you know what? I am going to give up this great apartment in this nice doorman building in this great area so I can move, a half hour that way and live in a worse place. So again, it's the intentions part. The intentions part are good, very obvious to me with you, but the outcome of it, it's just in most cases, once you outsource your responsibility, you ultimately will disable your ability to become a functioning part of society.
You hear this as well with mothers, right, who are on welfare, who they have a job opportunity and they're like, I don't want to do it because then I will lose out a portion of my welfare. Like that. In it.
I've heard that before. I've heard that with my own ears before. I don't want to lose my benefits by taking a job. I've also heard of women turning down good men because that man, maybe one or two, couldn't provide the same benefits that the government could provide, or scared that if this situation doesn't work out and I get off the government, I'm gonna lose my benefits. I've heard that with my own ears.
itself should really be, it should really highlight how destructive this mindset is. We have this in Australia as well. It's called the dole. And what I can definitely attest to is that the mindset, the ambition behind the American people compared to Australia, absolutely night and day. So different.
Well, listen, I would equate the welfare and the unemployment and the benefits to almost like a drug dealer, because they're just going to give you just enough, just a little bit, for you to come back to buy some more. So my first job out of college, I worked for Clear Channel Radio, which is now iHeartMedia. And it was great. I loved it the first year. Then I kind of just wasn't into it. And eventually they made some cuts and I got fired. So here's what happens. I'm 23 years old. I came from college. I never made any money before. I saved up a couple bucks. You get fired and they go, hey, yeah, fill out these forms. You're going to get unemployment. Sick. Okay. You're going to pay me, I think, like $1,000 a month. Maybe it was $2,000 a month max. Also, you're going to get this beautiful little EBT card, AKA food stamps. I'm like, hold on. You're going to pay me to just chill and do nothing?
Eat that luxurious
fast food that Pixie talks about? But what I realized was, number one, there's limits to it. But the best outcome I could have had was like $2,000 a month, and I don't have to do anything. So at some point, you're just sort of rewarding mediocrity and nothingness. So what I realized was, all right, this is cool now, but then if you start having kids, they give you a little bit more, and they give you a little bit more, and it's great. But there's nothing aspirational about that. So eventually I'm like, all right, I actually I'm a dude. I actually go get a job. Eventually I got into the financial world, got into a financial firm, and quite frankly made millions of dollars. Imagine if I was just like, yeah, I don't want to really do anything. I'm just going to rely on the government and do that. And I would have just been a mediocre person being rewarded for doing nothing. And that's where you saw, the road to road to hell is paved in good intentions.
This is plain and simple. The more they give you, the more they take away. the first check you get from them, they take away your spirit. You know, your spirit of trying to become better, do more things, and they give you more stuff, and they take away more stuff. Everything from welfare to like unemployment checks, whatever. They keep on taking. You know, and one day they close everything down and they tell you need to stay in your house.
Facts.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
And you know about this because you came from a communist country called
I know.
Chile.
Like, I want to call Pixie out on this because I saw the whole Norwegian dream thing playing out in 2 years in Chile. Like they promised Norway for everyone that everything is gonna be great. We're gonna have schools. We're gonna have healthcare and whatever. And in 2 years they destroy the country. All the memes that you see from the right in Chile, they're Norwegian dreams. Like they go like, oh, how Scandinavian of them when they're shitting on the street. That's what it is. That's what it is. Because that doesn't work. And I grew up in Dubai with a bunch of wealthy Europeans, and I will visit them in their country, their home country. And the lifestyle they had in Dubai with no taxes and the lifestyle they have in Europe is way different. Like the pretty wealthy families have shoe boxes. They have one car. You know, like it's a complete different ball game. And what happened to your people, Amy? They didn't tell the British to kick rocks. You know, like what makes us Americans is to tell the British to kick rocks. We're gonna do it our own way. That's why this is the best country in the world. That's what
why
it
I'm
is.
here. That's why I'm here. That's why he's here.
It
That's why
also-
your families. That's why we're all here.
It also disincentivizes good people who might do some good things from doing anything because you think the government is going to do everything for everybody. So for example, if you guys are into these ideas, like how much do you donate per year to poor people or disadvantaged or whatever? I assume you have a job. You have a job. Yeah. So like how much? 5% of your salary?
I'm not sure. Every time I'm presented at like a checkout thing where they're like, do you want to round up your total? Give $1 here, $1 there. It's usually when I make like, charitable contributions.
So
Sure.
probably about $10 to $20 this year every time you're rounding up.
Yeah,
That girl.
it's not that much.
Probably
Awesome. Sick amount.
something like that. So you
That girl.
care a lot about these people. You want the government to do it to take it from other people, but you give a
because
few
if
cents
charity
per.
defeated poverty, we would have gotten rid of poverty a long time ago. There have been charitable organizations for hundreds of years, but that's not a reliable way to help people actually have economic mobility.
Well,
We
it's
need
been
better
totally
paying
proven
jobs.
that capitalism around the globe has lifted people out of poverty, and socialism and communism has only put people deeper into poverty. That's not it. That's objectionably true. What were you going to say about this?
About giving checks and people staying home.
Yeah.
So we experienced this firsthand at the restaurant during 21 when everybody was getting paid to stay home. Because to your point, if I'm spending $350, I'm not going to spend $5,000 for an apartment. If I'm staying home and I'm making whatever thousands, and it was a good amount at the time, why would I go work? But what you don't realize is the ripple effects. Like we could have gone under. I was working as a server. Like we made it work because we had enough people that we were able to make it work. But nobody wanted to work. So what you realize is like businesses and everything is closing because nobody wants to work. So there's ripple effects that you will never feel, and that's back to the original point. You're young and you're sweet, but you have to live a little bit to experience these things, and then be like, no, absolutely not. Okay, I can't have a business because they're staying home because they don't want to come to work.
I appreciate the sister in the green jacket, the one lady that's actually talking like she has some sense. So I really, really appreciated her. It's obvious the other two that were on the other, right and left of her, they both seem like they're fairly young people. They haven't lived enough, in this world to really give a real analysis. And it just sounds like they have academic talking points. Kofi 19. But Chris, what are your thoughts on that last bit of the conversation there when they were talking about, welfare and how it, can help pull people up, so forth and so on. And I know Rubin was more or less saying that, no, welfare actually keeps people where they are or continues to put them in worse situations than where they were before they started.
I mean, the only thing welfare is good for is as a temporary bridge in the case of some type of unexpected calamity. But long-term welfare does nothing to lift people out of poverty. It actually drags them back down because now you're faced with over-regulation, disincentivization, all the other things that the woman in green was talking about is absolutely true, where they can't even get people to come to work now because there's enough of a welfare habit and enough of a welfare check that people are willing to live in poverty, in basic subsistence level because they don't have to work and they just get that. But welfare has never lifted anyone out of poverty. It can keep people out of poverty who started middle class and had some sort of calamity, and now it's a bridge to keep them in the middle class. That's possible, but actually lifting people out, no.
Man, I would agree with that. I like to live my life based off of biblical principles. Where is welfare at in the Bible?
Biblically, welfare was provided by your family, your household, and your community, and basically your extended family. When you ran into a problem, it wasn't the government that took care of you. It was your extended family, your brothers, your parents, your children. Retirement was your children taking care of you. Welfare was, hey, we had a problem. My brothers, my sisters, they stepped in and took care of me. And that was evident in the whole, especially in Jewish culture, it was evident in the whole, a brother steps in and marries the wife, the widow of a deceased man, so that she had an income. And so the brother's name was propagated in the inheritance of Israel. That was all the welfare system. There's no government involved in that at all.
You're absolutely right. I just wanted to get that out there on the record. If we start living more by the word of God, we will eliminate a lot of the poverty. Not all, a lot, because it does say the poor will always be among us. But we can eliminate a lot of this. And a lot of folks out there, when they start taking that government dole, they get lazy, and it doesn't help them. It actually hurts them more. And not only does it hurt whoever the adults are, the kids get to see it. So the kids don't get to see an example of a parent getting out there and working for something, setting goals and striving for something. So that's how you end up with generation after generation of people on the system, because they've never seen anybody actually go get it. Man, I appreciate you joining the stream. This was freaking awesome.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for inviting me in. And Wise, just super congratulations, man. Your channel is awesome. 100,000 subscribers. I love your content and I follow you every day. So if y'all aren't following Wise, you absolutely need to. And thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, go check out Chris over at Courageous Media. Hey, keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up out in these streets. It's crazy. America first. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.